Today I'm going to be showing you how to remove the high pressure oil pump out of a 2003 6-liter Powerstroke. I already removed the intercooler pipe on this side, the intake, don't mind the wiring. You have to remove this intercooler pipe, disconnect both the negative terminals, and then we'll go from there. Now that you have the negative terminals, the intake, the intercooler piping out, I already have the belt a little undone, but you can just undo these 313s, one plug, and then the 10 for the power lead, and fold this over, pull the alternator out, and then you'll have to unplug the turbo. There's two 10 millimeters on top for the feed, and then there'll be a 10 down here, a 10 on the other side, a 10 in the back, and then two 11V bands for the deep 11s for the up pipes and the down pipe. These are the up pipes. So I'll remove the turbo and the alternator and bring it back. There, you can go now. I wanted to show on these up pipe V blends, they can get stuck. See how this side's free, that side's still stuck. Just take a pry bar and a hammer. You take the pry bar and you hit it off of that lip, it'll pop it free. So now it's nice and free. You can pull these V bands off. There's a 10 right here, that's loose. There'll be another 10 right there. There's supposed to be another one back here, but that's not here on this one. So I'll pull the turbo out and then show you. So now that we got the turbo out, you can see the two feed line bolts a little better. Your up pipe, down pipe, one hold down bolt, the other hold down bolt. You have your drain that just slides in, and then there should be a bolt here that goes straight down on the 03s. This is an 05 and up, 04, 05 and up turbo, so this one goes straight out, so we had to cut that off, but that's just because we put one of these on there. Now, since this is an early 03 truck, this has the intake that crosses over in the back, so it sucks, but you have to pull the intake to pull the high pressure oil pump cover. So we'll need to remove the turbo pedestal, the turbo drain. We'll have to take this 8 millimeter off for the coolant line. There'll be a 10 millimeter right here for the fuel line, a wire for your throttle body that's sometimes not a throttle body. This one's EGR deleted, so the EGR is just hanging in here, so it doesn't have a code. And we'll pull this fuel and oil bowl out. I'll show you that. That has, I think this is an 18, a 21 or 22, another 18, and then a 19 banjo bolt. And then there is 4 T45 Torx that hold this whole housing. So we'll get those removed and show you the pieces out. Something to note too, when you go to pull the fuel and oil bowl out, if you just loosen the oil filter and pull it up a little bit and let it sit there, it'll drain all of, or most of the oil out of the oil bowl. When removing these fuel lines off of the fuel bowl, these fittings in the fuel bowl are most likely going to want to spin out. So you have to hold those with a wrench, because if you try and spin them out while they're stuck, you're just going to break the fuel line off. Then another thing I do is I put zip ties on the lines themselves, so this nut can't go any further back, so you're not chasing it down there. This is the oil and the fuel bowl out of the truck. You can see those 4 T45s a lot easier. That just sits in there. Be careful, that plastic piece can break very easily. So you pull this wiring up out of your way. Unplug the coolant temp sensor and the fan. The throttle position sensor, even though that's just a big joke, but. And now that we get that out of the way, this truck is EGR deleted, so all we have to do now is pull the turbo pedestal, which is 110 here, another 10 right there, and then 2 more on this side. This drain just goes in the high pressure oil pump cover, just an O-ring. So I'll remove those 2 10s, get the pedestal out of the way, and go from there. Now, before I go removing anything else for the intake to come out, you always have to unplug all your injectors. There's one here, another one here, another one here. So there's 4 on each side. And these work just by pushing this metal clip in. Sometimes you gotta take a screwdriver and they'll just pop right out. But you wanna take those out because when you go to lift the intake, you have a chance of breaking the injector plug, and then you gotta buy a $200-300 injector. So unplug all your injectors before you even start to pull the intake out. So, oh Jesus, let's get this here. Take the flathead and get light in there. Simply just come up, pry down, and then pull up. Now that I have all the injector plugs undone, then there is a ground back here for your Fickum. There's a 10mm nut on top of the bolt for the intake. And then this is an early 6-liter. So you have your IPR plug back here, which is tough to see. That's your IPR. And then you have an ICP plug as well. The ICP's back here in this cover too, on the early ones. On the later years, you'll have your IPR back here in the cover, and then you'll have your ICP sensor on the side of the valve cover over here into the oil rail. But this is an early truck. So now that we have, I think, all the wiring undone. Yep. Intake air temp sensor, unplug that. Like I said, don't mind this wiring, it's hacked together. All the injectors are unplugged. So I'm just gonna pull that one ground off, and then the wires are all disconnected. And then we can work on getting all the intake bolts out. You'll have to remove this map sensor hose. These are pretty easy normally. Oh, of course, this one doesn't want to be. So yeah, you'll have to pull that off. And then there's also, for the fan shroud, there's a 15mm in this hole. And it's a little tougher to see this one, but there's another hole right here, but in front, for another 15. You gotta pull those out. And when you go to take the intake out, some people just cut these so it comes right up, or you can just kind of pry it this way once these are loose and push the intake that way, and it'll come out. So now that I have all the 10mm bolts and bolt and studs removed out of the intake, make sure your coolant line's off, whether it's got an EGR cooler here or not. Make sure the coolant's drained, because it'll make a mess if it's not. And once that's off, that's open. I just cut this because this thing's a piece of shit, so, and then it can come out. So I'll pull this out and go from there. Now that I got the intake out of there, I put one rag between each port and all the ports just to make sure nothing gets in them. And then back here is your actual high pressure oil pump cover. Now you can leave the IPR and the ICP on there. You just have to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 8mm bolts out, and then the cover will pry up. It's siliconed and has a gasket sometimes, so sometimes they're a little tough to get out. Now that I got the high pressure oil pump cover off, you can come in here and see the high pressure oil pump. So you'll have two 8mm on the top, 1 10 on this side, 2 10s on this side. When you take these two 8s out, this whole line, don't disconnect it here. We'll just fold up and over. Make sure you don't drop any of these bolts, because if you do, it's going in the motor. So just be very careful.